now, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time p.m. in here in East Tennessee on April 14th. So, a lot going on. So I thought I'd do a quick video to start the week here. Um, so I thought we'd jump right in. What I thought was the big news today. Bukele of El Salvador. And if you don't know, he's done a fantastic job, like literally fantastic job since he's been there. He's like a Malay of Argentina. Argentina, if you didn't know, he's been really good. So glad he came. Remember, he's also taken these prisoners and so forth for the Trump administration. But DC Drano says it best. You know, if you went back in time to 2014 and told people Trump would win the presidency three times and America would have a closer relationship with El Salvador than the entire EU, not sure anyone would have believed it. But there you go. Because he has the values of the he has center right, conservative, and populist values. And he had probably one of the best lines today. He said, you know, basically, I'm not judged by how many people I incarcerated, but by how many people we've liberated. Okay. El Salvador was a murder capital, gangs. That's where MS-13 came from, among others. It was a disaster. And he cleaned it up. Okay, Trump even loved the line. He was like, "Whoa, can I use that line?" And his point is that by bringing down these criminal elements, I am empowering the sovereign people of El Salvador to seek their paths, their destinies, and it's really fantastic. So, very similar things here in the United States with our crime problem, our illegal immigration problem, everything going on that infringes on the right of citizens, whether it's globalist policies, the forever wars, whatever. They have their own issues, but he's getting their country back and starting to give it an identity. And why not? It's in our hemisphere. It's in our back door. Or our backyard, I should say. So basically, this is a good thing, and I like the way it's going. You know, I'm looking forward to where Trump and Malay get together too. So anyway, moving on. So one of the things they were talking about was this one guy who was mistakenly deported. So let's discuss this. This is the headline. White House: man mistakenly deported to El Salvador won't be returned to U.S. Despite a SCOTUS ruling that the United States must facilitate Maryland's man return, and Trump and El Salvador's president say it's not happening. Okay, well, let's discuss this. This individual was a known member of a gang. He's here illegally. He has an existing deportation order. And that is not what the U.S. Supreme Court said. Matter of fact, the U.S. Supreme Court affirmed the Article 2 power of the president as head of the executive when it comes to this issue. And that a district court judge, not just this one, but all of them, cannot interfere with that power. What they did say is that if El Salvador wished to return him, the United States should facilitate, meaning like provide an airplane to bring him back. But where do you, Stephen Miller said it best, where do you send him? He's a citizen of El Salvador. Where are you going to send him? France? You know, the Cameroons? No. This is where he's from. He's a citizen of El Salvador. He's a member of MS-13. And he has a deportation order. It's not the wrong man. It's not any of that. Completely identified by both governments on this issue. Okay? So the media is completely, left-wing media is trying to do a gotcha situation and focus on this one. They never focus on the victims, right? Like Laken Riley or all the other countless victims, okay, or rape victims of illegal immigrants. They're more concerned about this scumbag gang member. Now, there is also something called the withholding thing, and Steve Miller explained this, okay? But it doesn't apply because of the organization that he is belonging to, which is labeled basically as a terrorist organization. That's where the Enemies Act comes into play because this is a group that has come in illegally and mostly on false pretenses and smuggling things, whatever. They are, as an organization, creating problems. Not just one person come in and happens to commit a crime. This is a group. And that gives more leverage and leeway. And SCOTUS said Trump can do this. End of story. All they said was that if El Salvador does send him back, that we have to basically take him back. We can't just like leave him hanging, over the Gulf of America. Okay, so basically that's it. So it's just lies, to try to get an emotional response from their audience. It's just unbelievable, but that's the reality of it. It was actually a great win for the Trump administration on this issue. It locked in his ability to do this. Okay, so and Bukele says, "Nah, we're not gonna send him back. No reason to." Which I don't understand. Why would we take it back? He is not a citizen of the United States. He's a citizen of El Salvador. My God. Why does someone here illegally, why do people think that someone here illegally with a deportation order in a known gang that's been labeled as a terrorist organization has some sort of legal right to determine his own future of where he goes and be forced upon the citizens of the United States? It's insane. But it was clear. Bukele said, nah, we're not shipping him back. We'll keep him, which is awesome. So let's get a little politics in here. So this was very early, but let's look at this. Okay. And I jumped at me, not because of the number, because it is tied on a generic for echelon, and I'm not surprised, is that if this were the number on the eve of the 2026 midterm elections, and these were close to accurate, that'd be a very good performance for the GOP. The problem is, I'm not so sure this is going to happen. And I'll tell you why. Nothing because of Trump's doing. Okay, just saw another poll out today. He's +2 on approval. Okay, I still think it's a little higher than that, but whatever. Okay, it's the GOP. And there was an article in Politico about basically Republican senators getting wishy-washy on this bill that Johnson passed in the House, and this one big beautiful bill with the spending cuts and whatever. And if you don't know, Politico was like a go-to publication for Mitch McConnell. And now who is the Senate Majority Leader? John Thune. So magically, who was McConnell's lap boy. So magically, we got this article in Politico today basically saying, hey, we don't know how we're going to do it, this and that, almost setting up that this is not going to happen. If the Republican Party fails to deliver a big, beautiful bill, even if it's not perfect, believe me, and it won't be, and make the tax cuts permanent of 2017 from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, if they don't deliver some of these things like no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, by the way, which will be the Republicans will get credit for that and help them. But if they don't do these things, and we're going in closer to the midterms, and we get through the summer and whatever, and then we have the debt ceiling fight, and if the Republicans aren't able to do this, then what are they going to do on a debt ceiling and on the next budget? Ridiculous. If they don't do it, they will get wiped out, because the Trump voter that came out in Pennsylvania and Michigan, even North Carolina, Nevada, that is not historically a Republican voter, they are not coming out in 2026. Democrats will come out. They always come out. And it'll be wiped out. So this poll, while it's good, it's on the Republican Party. It is not on Trump. Okay, and if he needs to do that, and if you can't vote for 1.5 trillion cuts in 10 years, and make the tax cuts permanent, okay, because that will be the largest tax increase on the middle class in American history if they sunset. The child tax credit goes from 4 to 2,000. The standard deduction gets basically cut in half. The 10% bracket goes to 12. The 22 goes to 25. Okay? Who does that hurt the most? Middle class families. And it'll be the Republican Party that'll be known as they couldn't do it. And they will do it. Because they'll go, well, at least the Democrats, if I have those high taxes, they'll give me shit for it. Okay? I realize I'm not going to have great opportunities except huge debt, and hopefully I luck out at a job, huge debt from college, and luck out at a job, or I work in retail where I'm struggling and I can't afford anything. So I might as well get something from the Democrats. That's what they'll do. Okay, because a lot of these people are ancestral Democrats. You got to remember that, these Trump voters. Okay, and Trump pulled these Republicans across the line. All right, they all underperformed Trump, but he got them across the line. Now Trump won't be on the ballot, so they have to be big boys and do this. And if you can't do those things, 1.5 trillion over 10 years is nothing. We're still going to have $1.5 trillion deficits minimum. That's what it looks like to me. Okay, so if you can't do that, then don't be a Republican, because that's what the Republican base wants. Go be a Democrat, or just go home. Just go directly to that corporate board. Go right to Raytheon. Go right to ExxonMobil. Whatever. Just go wherever you want to go. Okay, because if you can't do that, then you can't do anything. Then you're freaking useless. So that's my little warning for the GOP in 2026 for 2026. So moving on. It's from Open Secrets. If you don't know Open Secrets, they publish stuff that's public that nobody wants to do the research on, and they do it for you. This is pharmaceutical and health products, pharmaceutical manufacturing, health insurance and HMOs, hospitals and nursing homes, medical devices and supplies. So this is the contributions to these senators in each of these categories from 1990 to 2024. Bernie Sanders has received 23.1 million. Warnock has only been there 4 years, has received $14.7 million. Elizabeth Warren, 10.4. She's going bananas over RFK. Well, here you go. It's right here. Ron Wyden, Oregon, 6.7. Patty Murray, Washington, 5.8. Tammy Baldwin, Michigan, 4.9. Catherine Cortez Masto, 3.7. And on and on and on. Now, I notice these are all Democrats on this list. So I believe you'll see a lot of Republicans on this list. So I have a feeling this list was scrubbed to take the Republicans out. I don't know that for sure, but that's my gut. I guarantee you see a lot of Republicans on this list. So this is it's more of a a call out of the system than Democrat versus Republican. Because believe me, these Republican scumbags, as I just discussed on the prior topic, if they can't get this bill done, okay, well, how useless they are, they're part of this problem too, because they're getting this money as well. All right, so shifting gears a little. Canada elections in a few weeks. All right. So this is a poll that came out. That's the Conservative Party, 44%. They recently took the lead in this poll, and this is Pierre Poilievre, I believe is how it's pronounced, is the Conservative candidate. Now he's kind of taken up an anti-Trump mantra because of the tariff issue, and he's made a lot of mistakes. He is what I would consider better than the Liberal Party. If it was up to me, I wish it was the People's Party. They are center-right, populist party. They don't have a lot of traction. In this poll, it won. The highest I saw was like 3 in other polls. So that's it. Maybe they're concentrated in a couple places, but that's the polling right there. Now, if you don't know, the NDP are a bunch of lunatics. Lunatics. Okay? Left-wing nut jobs. NDP. They're run by this guy, I think, Singh. He's a Sikh. He's got the turban, which I don't have a problem with, but that's how I'm telling you to identify him. On a 4% is Bloc Québécois. That is the Quebec nationalists. And then the Greens there. So there you have it. So I want to just know one thing. In the 2021 elections, the conservatives won 34% of the vote to 31% of the liberal vote, and they still lost parliament because of how that vote was divided. A couple of the islands in the northeast, like around Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia area, conservatives did better, but they just didn't get enough vote share in Ontario and a couple other areas to turn it into seats where they could take parliament. Okay, now they did gain seats, but just because they won that national vote, similar to the electoral college, it's not. It's more related. It's like a first past the post system, like the United Kingdom. You win the seats, whatever. But their home base, they won really big, right? Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Okay, but they fell short in a lot of these little more populated districts, like in Ontario, for example. But they still got the 34%. So just because you're getting 44, 42 when you won by 3 points last time does not mean you're even going to win Parliament. Now, the other difference here, because if you see it's 44, 42, and I was giving you 34, 31 last time, the NDP got around 20% last time. All right. So that's when we were entering, Biden globalist, left wing resurgence, progressive nonsense resurgence globally, after the 2020 election. So there was a lot of, I guess, inspiration behind the NDP. I also think there's possibility that a lot of NDP voters really don't want the conservatives, so they're like, the liberals are the only shot. Like, I could afford to vote NDP and vote my conscience as a lefty nutjob because I still thought the liberals would win over the conservatives, but they're afraid of that. So that could also be pulling some votes away. So I just want to give you an update where we are with that. Pierre Poilievre is getting he's pulling crowds at some rallies, but he's just not doing consistently the right things he needs to do. And that's what I would expect from a career establishment politician. But we'll keep an eye on these elections. I think the Canadian people will benefit from Poilievre. Um, uh, they were up 20, 25 points a while back, something like ridiculous like that. So it's pretty crazy that it's happened. The tariffs and Trudeau fighting against Trump, I believe, has helped the Liberal Party kind of give a nationalist kind of fervor for some people, probably on the centrist, move more to the left. But you also got to understand, Canada's also more left wing than the United States. The Liberal Party's more, well, maybe not the Democratic Party, but their Conservative Party is not, believe me, it ain't MAGA. I'll tell you that right now. So, all right, moving on. All right. This was a tweet. I thought it was good. Brian Brown. Breaking emergency in Romania. Just got word from high up that whoever is organizing a trip of U.S. congressmen to Romania is undermining real Donald Trump and Vance by meeting with the anti-Trump forces only. Looks like the current U.S. ambassador to Romania. The meeting is tomorrow, and the good guys are not invited. I also got the letter being sent to the liberals only, and it's from the embassy. Vance has made clear that we should not be supporting parties and politicians that attack democracy in Romania, yet pro-members of parliament are not being invited. Only the pro-Soros haters. There are some good congressmen going that are being kept in the dark about the plan to shut out the good guys. Please reach out to George Simeon or Andre Derlau. So, and then there's the letter. So, what I want to say about it, why it's fun, if you don't know, in May is the Romanian election. And Georgescu was a populist leader, an independent, who won the first round massively. And due to pressure from the Biden and State Department, other EU, whatever, they pressured the Supreme Court or the courts of Romania to throw out the election. And then they banned him from running. So the Conservative Party put up this guy Simeon. He's not as good as Georgescu, but he's better. He's not bad, and he'll be with us on more things. He's now up in the polls. Okay, here he is, Simeon. He's actually down 1 point from this last poll, but he's still leading Antonescu, who is a globalist scumbag. So I think that's really interesting that they're doing this. Now, Trump's in power. Now, in my opinion, Trump has no idea about Romanian elections or the knowledge of what goes on in that. It's just not his game. Okay. And it shows you how the deep state, the administrative state, and the foreign establishment works outside of the president. Even though it's his constitutional power to set foreign policy and his alone. You need Congress to declare war, but outside of that, to set policy, it's president. We should not be sending people a meeting with the liberals. Now, the reason why they're with the liberals is because they're pro EU, they're pro NATO, like crazy, and they're globalists. Okay, they're mask wearing, COVID vaccine, doxing, all shadow banning, arresting, tweeting, security state, progressive, globalist nut jobs. Okay, and they're going over there, and there'll be Republicans over there who have no clue, about what's going on. Oh, this is great. Yeah, we're for freedom. We're freedom. You just banned a guy from running for president because you didn't like his policies. Period. That's not democracy. So it's a joke. But anyway, I thought that was good with the election going on. That we're going over there now to prop up the bad guy, as Brown said in his tweet there. So unbelievable. So moving on. Trump sends new message to Zelensky. You don't start a war against somebody that is 20 times your size and then hope that people give you some missiles. Excuse me, I think that's hilarious. It's true. People say, well, Putin started the war, invaded in February 24th, 2022. He did. With 90,000 troops to force basically the Minsk agreements that were completely ignored by Ukraine and the West. No 90,000 troops, with maybe 30, 40 reserve and 40,000 from Lugansk and Donetsk militias, were going to take and hold Ukraine. It's insane. Okay? That's what they were trying to do. That's why you had the corridor on the top coming down from the north to Kiev to push them into the negotiating table. They went to the negotiating table. And so that's your special military operation. No NATO. You got to chill out with this. You're going to implement the Minsk Accord so the people in the Donbass can speak their own language, etc., etc. So they'll at least be independent. And then we're going to have this huge negotiation. And it was shut down by the West. Biden administration, EU, NATO. They flew Boris Johnson in to Istanbul to say to Zelensky, no. It became a war then. And that's what Trump's referring to. At least I think that's what he's got to know that. Okay, I mean Witkoff is clearly know that. And by the way, the reason why I think Witkoff is there, because he trusts Witkoff. I don't think he trusts Rubio. Rubio is a big neocon, not a big fan of him. Okay, Waltz, not a big fan of him. All right, we now know he can't even do an app. Okay, so Witkoff he trusts personally, and what he learned from his first term, like get the troops out of Syria, and they didn't listen to him. He's got a guy he can trust. Just tell him, no, this is their concern. This is that. And he can read people. He can do whatever. And he knows. And if you watch a Tucker interview with Witkoff, you know that. So I think Trump has learned some of these things. And that's why he let it slip out there. Zelensky started the war. Now, I blame more Boris and the West than I do Zelensky because I bet you they pressured Zelensky in. And they probably promised him the world or whatever. Just why he's got houses now and stuff. But who knows? But I thought that was interesting. Okay, so everybody knows Russia crossed the border and started the conflict. There's no dispute there. But what was the intentions? Maybe it should have been over then, just like the Georgia incursion in 2009, I think it was. Okay, they went to South Ossetia, problem solved. Now there's not a Russian soldier there. Okay, so that's kind of what they were hoping for, and then the war really started, and it's the war that became just the beginning, Russia versus Ukraine. It's now Ukraine plus every freaking piece of equipment and training and intelligence the West can give them. And that's what the war, that's what he's referring to. So, all right, back to Russian gas. Trump wary EU has energy security dilemma. No shit. Stupid green policies. You shut down your nuclear plants. You shut down coal plants. You shut down the types of plants, okay? So green policies. Then you cut off the Russian gas to you, which is now being sold to the East, okay? Okay, and I've showed in one of my videos in the past, and Bloomberg actually did a perfect chart of it. No law, actually, Russian oil and gas revenue is up. They just shifted it to India, to China, to other nations. That's it. Okay. Meanwhile, as they're like last year, Russia's economy, the 4% increase in their GDP, their actual tax revenues has gone up. So that's why when Trump says that they're just totally tied to oil and natural gas, it's not true. And one of the reasons why their economies grew 4% last year is because of the sanctions. Every Russian company and citizen had to bring their money back. So it went to work inside Russia. And since it has its own industrial base, manufacturing, as well as what do you call it, amazing natural resources, they just started putting it to work. So that's it. What are they going to do? They're going to go to the United States. So what I don't want is what the Biden administration did is replace some of that Russian gas at the expense of us by not increasing production. They just shifted it. Okay, well, we need to increase production and replace some of that. Frankly, they should do some of it themselves. I mean, it's shutting down, like Germany shut down nuclear power plants. What? France said, no, we're keeping it. Because if you don't know, France is like dominantly nuclear. I think it's like 70% they're nuclear. So it's fine. And they have to export their energy to Germany. That's why their economy's in contraction. But they put it like a headline, like what do you expect? Oh, you mean if we shut down our coal and nuclear plants, and we don't mine anymore and explore, and we cut off the cheap Russian gas, we're going to have an energy dilemma? Who saw that coming? Amazing, these people. All right. Oh, hit the wrong one there. So if you don't know, there was a big missile strike in Sumy. They hit what they call the Congress building of the Sumy State University. Okay, now Sumy is by the Kursk region in Ukraine Oblast. It was hit by Russia. MOD confirmed that it was hit by an Iskander missile, and in there were a lot of Ukrainian top military officials. Matter of fact, in that picture I just showed you, which I won't show you again, that was the leader of the 27th Rocket Artillery Brigade. Was one of the people who are confirmed dead in there. There were also, and they had, and this is not the first time Russia's done this. They've hit like once. I know they hit a hotel once where there were foreign like mercenaries gathering, people who were volunteering from other countries. They were staying in that hotel. Russia got wind of it. They took out the hotel. So same thing here. Now in this one, there were a bunch of civilians that got killed in here. I mean, it is a state university. You are using an Iskander missile. I mean, that's it. But I believe the death toll is 60. A lot of Ukrainian military personnel, civilians in the area. It's what you expect, collateral damage. But Russia's gonna hit you if they think you're military. And there was also rumors there was actually some Western countries military there. Don't know that, can't confirm that. Heard it from a couple sources and that. But if they get wind of a military target, now the difference is they view this as a military target. Well, the Ukrainians, because you only hear about it in the media, right? Like when Ukraine left Kursk, during the infrastructure, energy infrastructure, like kind of loose thing, what they do? They attacked the Suja gas pipeline. Then they threw drones at apartment buildings in Rostov on Don all that weekend. Okay, so they purposely hit targets. I think one of the reasons they do it is to trigger a massive response from Putin. Says, that's it, I've had enough, and does something so egregious that gets us directly into the war. That's what I think they're hoping. Okay, but here they're going to hit a target, and they know that's collateral damage. But they will. But if they get intelligence that their top military people on an oblast right next to Kursk and Kharkiv, okay, that are meeting, they're going to take it out, and that's what they did. So that's it, and Ukraine will do the same. I mean, Ukraine is assassinated. They killed Dugin's daughter. They thought he was in the car, but they got her daughter. They actually switched cars. They blew up a restaurant to get a guy. So to say that like countries don't do this during war is insane. But you only hear about what Russia does. You never hear about what Ukraine does because they don't report it here. It's like the old question: why are there never any what Why are there never any what do you call it? Reporters right there on the front line, the actual real front line. So, that's just the funny issue. So, because they don't want you to see, right? Remember Iraq War, Geraldo? Yeah, I'm embedded with the troops. None of that. None of that. You have to rely on independent reporters, people on the ground, okay? Because the messaging is it's got to be consistent with the narrative. Remember, there is no news. There's only information and narrative. Okay. So that's what we have going here. So on that note, and they talk about it like peace deal. The Europeans are still talking about like peacekeepers. It's like, well, there's no peace. Ridiculous. So that was another picture of that poor sap who got iced today. And remember, this war shouldn't be going on. And by the way, we got 18-year-olds now being shown up on the front on the Ukraine side. There are now reports of a lot of women being seen and even taken prisoner by the Russians. I've getting reports of that now. They're seeing more women on the front. So it's like, that's what it's like in Ukraine. It's like you go to the store to buy some milk, you're 18 years old, and boop, you just get off to the front you go. Be used as cannon fodder for the globalists. But anyway, so that's my video for today, April 14th. I'm going to keep an eye and see what's going on in Ukraine, in the Sumy region. Remember, there's still reports of troops and more operations massing, and Russia's been focusing on Sumy lately and Zaporozhye in the southwest. In Donetsk area, their Russians are driving towards Konstantinovka, which is an area they're really close to taking the most of Donetsk as well. So we'll keep it on that. Keep it on the polls in the Romanian election as well as the Canadian elections. I'm really going to start looking into that and following that. And we'll see what keeps going on in domestic policy and see what the House and Senate are doing with this bill. We got to start putting pressure on them to pass this. Personally, it's like 1.5 or 10 years. Can we do 4, 5 trillion? That with growth, some industrial repatriation, get real tangible growth, increase the domestic purchasing power of the dollar. That would be nice. But you can't do it if you don't cut any spending and make these tax cuts permanent. So we got to put pressure on our representatives with that. It shouldn't be that hard. Anyway, and why didn't they have it set to go? Like, this is on the agenda. Have the think tanks put up the bill before even election day. Done. All right, so we'll keep an eye on that over the course of the week. I'm actually starting to lose a little faith that they're going to get this done. So, I'm focusing on it so much. But keep an eye on that. So anyway, have a good night. I'll put another video out later in the week with any news. You can follow me on my X at Patriot Planner 1, my Getter at Patriot Planner. And if you like the video, please follow, like, and share. All right, have a great week, guys. Bye.